In this movie, we can now proceed further with our animated character. Off screen, I've gone ahead and reset this scene back to its initial state so that it contains simply the environment and our character at the center here. So it has everything we need to get started at creating an animated character. Notice that the character has been added to the scene. The one thing that I have added to it off screen is simply a character controller, just to prevent it through moving physical obstacles in the scene. And to do that, I just simply selected the character and I selected Component, Physics, and then selected Character Controller. We've seen the details of adding that in a previous movie. I've not attached any script to this, it's just simply the Character Controller component. I have the animator here. This was added by default when I dragged and dropped the Ethan object into the scene. To add this object to the scene, I simply scroll down here to the Standard Assets, Third Person Character, and inside the Models folder you can see the Ethan character which I just dragged and dropped into the scene. I will increase the thumbnail preview so that we can actually see that here in the project panel. We just want to drag and drop that object here, and this is the Ethan object. So what I want to do is to configure this so we can move the character around the scene. Now before we start coding here with Mecanim, I need to create an animation controller, or rather an animator controller, which is part of the Mecanim system. This system defines when the different animations should play. So to do that, I'm going to scroll back up here inside the project panel, back to the char.anim folder, and inside this folder here, I'm going to right click and choose Create, and then from the context menu, I'm going to select Animator Controller. I'm going to select that option here from the context menu to create that, and I will give this the name Anim Control, and I will call it char move, and press enter on the keyboard to accept that name. Now when I double click on this, it will open this here, this graph, inside the animator window. If this window doesn't open, you can open it manually by choosing Window and then choosing Animator from the menu here. It doesn't have a keyboard shortcut associated with it. So here we have the animator graph, and we have this green entry point node, which will be triggered or initiated when the level begins. So when the level begins, the entry node will be entered, and this will determine which animation should play on the character object when the level begins. Right now this entry node is connected to nothing, and so therefore no animation will play at all. Now by default I want the character to enter the idle state, but of course it has the potential to enter different states. So to create this kind of functionality we need to create a blend tree. To do that I'm going to right click here inside the graph, choose Create State, and then I'm going to select From New Blend Tree from the context menu to create a new blend tree. This will create a new blend tree in the graph here. Now when I select the blend tree in the graph, in the Object Inspector, I will give this the name of BT for blend tree, and I will then call this char. So BT char for blend tree char. If I double click on this, we enter a new option in this menu. So notice we get this thumbnail trail up here. We began at the base layer and we've now entered the blend tree with BT char. I can easily get back to the base layer by clicking on that, and I can go back to the blend tree by double clicking on the blend tree again, just as we've seen before. Now because the character effectively has two different dimensions of movement, the character can turn left and turn right, but it can also move forwards and it can come to a standstill. So we have two axes or two directions of movement. To configure that, I'm going to change the blend tree here. So right now we have this standard blend tree. I'm going to select the blend tree option here. You can see down here we have the blend type. It is currently set to 1D, meaning one dimension. I'm going to click on that drop down, and from this I'm going to choose 2D Freeform Cartesian, named after the philosopher René Descartes. So I'm going to choose 2D Freeform Cartesian to get a completely 2D blend tree, and under the parameter section you can see that we have two parameter fields. We're going to be completing these and the rest of the blend tree in the next video.